I never imagined my own daughter-in-law would throw scalding soup at me during a family dinner. But what she didn't know was that I'd already made one phone call that would change everything. My name is Loretta Blackwell. I'm 62 years old, and this is the story of how I discovered the darkest secret hiding in my son's marriage. A secret so twisted, it would destroy 3 families and end with someone behind bars. That Sunday evening at Marcus and Kendra's house, I sat at their mahogany dining table, wearing my best church dress, trying to make small talk with Kendra's mother, Vivian. The woman had ice water running through her veins. When Kendra brought out her famous she-crab soup, piping hot from the stove, Vivian took one look at me, grabbed the bowl, and hurled the boiling liquid straight into my face. I felt the searing heat burn my cheeks, my neck, my collarbone. The pain was excruciating. But what hurt more was watching my son Marcus sit there, frozen, while his mother-in-law smiled at me with cold satisfaction and said in a voice clear as crystal, "That's exactly what trash like you deserves." The room went silent. Kendra looked away. Marcus looked down at his plate, and I understood in that horrible moment that my own son had chosen his wife's family over me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood up with whatever dignity I had left, took a linen napkin, and dabbed at my burning face. Then I walked to the hallway, pulled out my phone, and dialed the one number I'd saved 3 weeks earlier. When Detective Raymond Hayes answered, I said just 4 words. "It's time. Come now." Then I hung up, walked out their front door, and never looked back. Because what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been investigating them for months, and what I'd discovered was so much worse than I ever imagined. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand how we got here. Because this story doesn't start with hot soup and humiliation. It starts 3 years ago, when my son Marcus brought home a woman named Kendra, and everything in my life began to unravel. My name is Loretta Jean Blackwell, and I've lived in Columbia, South Carolina my entire life. I'm not a fancy woman, never have been. I worked 34 years at the Richland County Water Department, first as a clerk, then supervisor, then assistant director before I retired. I own a small brick house in the Elmwood Park neighborhood. Nothing extravagant, just 3 bedrooms, a front porch with a swing, and a garden where I grow tomatoes and collard greens. After my husband Darnell died from a sudden heart attack when Marcus was only 7 years old, I raised our boy alone. I worked double shifts. I sewed his clothes when money was tight. I made sure he had hot meals and help with homework, and someone in the stands at every baseball game. Marcus was my whole world, my reason for waking up every morning, my proof that something beautiful could survive even after your heart breaks. He was a good boy, respectful, hardworking, smart. He got a scholarship to Claflin University, studied accounting, graduated with honors, got hired by a prestigious firm in Charleston, then transferred back to Columbia after 5 years. He bought himself a condo downtown, drove a sensible sedan, wore crisp suits to work. He called me every Sunday without fail. We'd have dinner together at least twice a month. He was the son every mother dreams of having. Then he met Kendra Augustine at some corporate networking event, and everything changed. The first time Marcus brought her to meet me, I knew something was off. Not with Kendra herself. She was polite enough, beautiful even, with her honey-colored skin and designer clothes. But the way she looked at my house when they pulled up, the slight wrinkle of her nose when she stepped inside, the way her eyes scanned my modest living room like she was cataloging evidence of poverty, that told me everything. We sat on my floral couch that I'd had for 15 years, the same one where Marcus used to fall asleep watching cartoons, and Kendra perched on the edge like she might catch something. I'd made sweet tea and pecan cookies, my specialties. Marcus ate 3 cookies and praised them like he always did. Kendra took one small bite and set hers down on the napkin. "These are very sweet," she said with a tight smile. "I'm watching my sugar intake." "That's smart," I replied, trying to be gracious. "You have such a lovely figure." "Thank you, Miss Loretta. Mama always says a woman's appearance is her first impression." "Your mama. I would hear about Mama constantly in the months to come. Mama says this, Mama does that, Mama thinks, Mama believes. Like this woman's mother was some kind of oracle whose every word was gospel." We made small talk for about an hour. Kendra told me she worked in pharmaceutical sales, made excellent commissions, drove a BMW her father had helped her buy. She mentioned her family lived in Forest Acres, one of Columbia's wealthiest neighborhoods. She talked about country club memberships and vacation homes and designer brands I'd never heard of. Everything she said seemed designed to remind me that we came from different worlds. When they left that day, Marcus hugged me tight like always. "Mama, she's the one. I really think she's the one." "That's wonderful, baby," I said, holding his face in my hands. "As long as she makes you happy and treats you right, that's all that matters." But even as I said it, something in my gut twisted. Something that whispered, "This woman doesn't see your son. She sees a project. She sees someone to mold into what she wants." I pushed that feeling down because I trusted Marcus's judgment. I trusted that my smart, capable son could see through pretense and find genuine love. I was wrong. 6 months later, Marcus called me with news. "Mama, I proposed. Kendra said yes. We're getting married next summer." My heart should have soared. Instead, it sank. But I forced enthusiasm into my voice. "That's wonderful, honey. I'm so happy for you both." "There's something else, Mama. Kendra and I have been talking, and we think it's time I move in with her. She has a big house her parents helped her buy, and it makes more financial sense than both of us having separate places." "You're moving in together before the wedding?" I tried to keep judgment out of my voice. "Times have changed, Mama. This is how people do things now." "I understand, baby, as long as you're happy." But I didn't understand, because the Marcus I raised believed in doing things the right way, in respecting certain traditions, and I wondered what else Kendra was changing about my son. The changes came fast after that. Marcus started missing our Sunday dinners, first occasionally, then regularly. "Kendra's family does Sunday brunch at the country club," he'd explain. "We really need to be there. You understand, right, Mama?" I said I understood, but I didn't, because for 35 years, Sunday dinner had been sacred between us, and now it was being discarded for mimosas and golf course conversations. Marcus stopped calling as often. Our twice-monthly dinners became monthly, then every other month. When we did see each other, Kendra was always there, always steering conversations, always checking her phone, always mentioning how Marcus needed to network more, dress better, be seen in the right places. I watched my son transform. He started wearing expensive cologne I couldn't pronounce. He traded his sensible sedan for a luxury SUV he couldn't afford. He stopped wearing the watch I'd given him for his college graduation, replacing it with some Swiss brand that cost more than my mortgage. Marcus, are you sure you can afford all this? I asked him once when we were alone. Mama, you don't understand business. You have to look successful to be successful. Kendra gets that. Her family gets that. Her family. I was about to meet them. The engagement party was held at Vivian and Lawrence Augustine's mansion in Forest Acres. And I do mean mansion. The house had columns, a circular driveway, professionally landscaped grounds, and more square footage than 6 of my houses combined. I wore my best dress, the royal blue one with the modest neckline that I'd bought for church. I did my hair nicely, put on my mother's pearls, and made sure I looked presentable. I wanted to make a good impression on Kendra's family because they were going to be part of Marcus's life now. When I pulled up in my 12-year-old Honda, a young man in a vest tried to take my keys for valet parking. Valet parking at someone's house. I politely declined and parked on the street. The party was already in full swing when I arrived. About 75 people milled around with champagne glasses, everyone dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. I immediately felt underdressed, out of place, invisible. Kendra spotted me and came over with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Miss Loretta, you made it. Come, let me introduce you to my parents." She led me through the crowd to where a couple held court near the stone fireplace. Vivienne Augustine was a tall, elegant woman in her late 50s, wearing cream-colored silk and enough diamonds to open a jewelry store. Her husband Lawrence was shorter, rounder, with a booming laugh and an expensive suit. "Mama, Daddy, this is Marcus's mother, Loretta Blackwell." "Oh, how lovely to meet you," Vivian said, extending her hand limply like I was supposed to kiss it instead of shake it. "Marcus has told us so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied with a genuine smile. "Of course," Lawrence boomed. "You raised a fine young man, smart fellow, great potential." Potential. Like Marcus was a stock they were considering investing in. "Thank you. He's worked very hard to get where he is." "Yes, well," Vivian said, looking me up and down quickly. "Kendra certainly has her work cut out for her, doesn't she? Molding him into the man he needs to become." The words hit me like a slap. "I think Marcus is already the man he needs to be." "Oh, I'm sure you think so," Vivian said with a patronizing smile. "A mother's love is blind to faults. But Kendra sees the bigger picture. She understands what's required to succeed in our world. Our world. Like I was from another planet." Before I could respond, Kendra whisked her parents away to greet other guests, and I was left standing alone near the fireplace, feeling about 2 inches tall. I found Marcus in the kitchen, laughing with some people I didn't know. When he saw me, his smile faltered slightly. "Hey, Mama, you having a good time?" "It's a lovely party," I lied. "Kendra's family seems very nice." "They're great, aren't they? Mr. Lawrence already offered to help me get into the country club, said it's important for business connections." "That's generous of him." "Mama, I know this isn't really your scene, but I'm really glad you came. It means a lot to me." "Of course, baby, I wouldn't miss it." But even as we stood there, I could see Vivienne watching us from across the room, her expression calculating, predatory almost. I left the party early, claiming I had an early morning. Marcus barely noticed. He was too busy networking with Kendra's family friends, learning how to be someone I didn't recognize. Driving home through familiar streets, I felt tears I wouldn't let fall. Because I understood then what was happening. Kendra and her family were erasing me from my son's life, replacing his humble roots with their wealth and status, remaking him into one of them. And Marcus was letting them do it. Over the next 6 months, the distance between Marcus and me grew into a chasm. He stopped visiting my house entirely. "It's just easier to meet at restaurants, Mama," he'd say when I suggested Sunday dinner at my place. But when we met at restaurants, they were always expensive places Kendra chose, places where the menu didn't have prices and the portions were so small I went home hungry. I wasn't included in wedding planning. Kendra had that covered with her mother. "They're handling everything, Mama. You don't need to worry about it." Over the next 6 months, the distance between Marcus and me grew into a chasm. He stopped visiting my house entirely. "It's just easier to meet at restaurants, Mama," he'd say when I suggested Sunday dinner at my place. But when we met at restaurants, they were always expensive places Kendra chose, places where the menu didn't have prices and the portions were so small I went home hungry. I wasn't included in wedding planning. Kendra had that covered with her mother. "They're handling everything, Mama. You don't need to worry about it." But I wanted to worry about it. I wanted to help my son plan his wedding. I wanted to be part of this important moment. Instead, I received updates like I was a distant relative, not the groom's mother. "The ceremony will be at Trinity Episcopal Cathedral. Reception at the Columbia Museum of Art. Kendra's mother arranged everything." "That sounds beautiful. Can I help with anything?" "Actually, Mama, there is something." Marcus looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Vivienne has very specific ideas about the aesthetic, and she's asked if you could wear a specific color. Slate gray. She'll send you some approved dress options." "She's telling me what to wear to my own son's wedding?" "Mama, please. This is important to Kendra. Can you just go along with it?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake my son and ask when he'd become someone who let his fiancé's mother dictate terms to his own mother. But I swallowed my pride. "Of course, baby. Whatever Kendra wants." The dress options Vivian sent were expensive and unflattering, clearly chosen to make me look dowdy next to her elegance. I bought the cheapest one anyway because I wasn't going to cause problems at my son's wedding. But something else was happening that I couldn't ignore. Marcus started asking me for money. It started small. "Mama, can you loan me $2,000? Just until my bonus comes through next month." I gave it to him without question. I'd saved carefully over the years, had a decent retirement fund. Helping my son wasn't a burden, except he never paid me back. And a month later, he asked for $3,000 more, then $5,000, then $8,000, always with promises to repay me soon, always with explanations about wedding expenses or unexpected costs or investments that would pay off huge. After a year, I'd given Marcus over $40,000. Money I'd saved for emergencies, for my future, for the possibility I might need medical care or home repairs. All of it going to my son, who drove a luxury SUV and lived in a big house and wore designer suits. "Marcus, honey, when can you start paying me back? I'm getting worried about my savings." "Mama, don't stress about it. Once I make partner at the firm, I'll pay you back double. Kendra's father is helping me position myself for promotion." But the promotion never came, and neither did my money. The wedding day arrived. It was beautiful, exactly as elaborate and expensive as Vivian wanted. The cathedral was filled with white roses and orchids. 300 guests in designer clothes filled the pews. A string quartet played Mozart. I sat in the third row, not the first. Vivian had explained that since Kendra's family was paying for the wedding, they needed the prime seats for their important guests. I sat behind strangers while my son married a woman who was slowly erasing me from his life. During the reception, I barely saw Marcus. He was too busy making rounds with Kendra, thanking donors and business connections and country club members. When we finally had our mother-son dance, it lasted exactly 1 minute before Kendra cut in with some urgent person Marcus needed to meet. "Sorry, Mama," he said, kissing my cheek. "Duty calls." I danced alone back to my table in the corner, where I'd been seated with Marcus's father's elderly relatives, people I barely knew. Vivian found me there during dessert. She sat down with the grace of a queen granting an audience. "Loretta, I wanted to have a word with you about something important." "Of course." "Now that Marcus and Kendra are married, they're starting their new life together. A life that requires a certain level of focus and commitment. You understand what I'm saying?" "I'm not sure I do." Vivian's smile was sharp as a knife. "What I'm saying is that Marcus needs space to grow into the man Kendra needs him to be, and that means creating some distance from his past, from influences that might hold him back." "Influences? You mean me?" "I mean well-intentioned people who don't understand the world Marcus is entering now. People who might make him feel guilty about the success he deserves." My hands shook with rage, but I kept my voice level. "I have never made my son feel guilty about anything, except maybe not calling his mother often enough." "Of course you haven't, not intentionally. But you must understand, Loretta, that Marcus is part of our family now. The Augustine family has standards, expectations, a reputation to maintain. And we can't have that reputation damaged by associations that don't reflect well on us." "Are you telling me to stay away from my own son?" "I'm suggesting that you love him enough to let him flourish without the weight of obligations to a past that no longer serves his future." I stood up, my chair scraping loud against the floor. "You can suggest whatever you want, Mrs. Augustine, but Marcus is my son, and nothing you say or do will change that." Vivian's eyes went cold. "We'll see about that." I left the reception early, went home, and cried for the first time since Darnell died. Because I understood then that I was in a war I didn't know how to fight. A war against a woman who had money, power, and complete control over my son's wife. But I didn't know yet how deep the evil ran. I didn't know yet what Vivian and Kendra were really planning. I didn't know that my son's life was in danger, and he was too blind to see it. After the wedding, Marcus and Kendra moved into a sprawling house in Forest Acres, just 3 blocks from Vivian and Lawrence. A house I later learned Vivian had bought for them, securing their loyalty and proximity. My invitations to visit were met with excuses. "The house is still a mess, Mama." "Let us get settled first." Months passed. The house remained off-limits to me. Marcus's calls became monthly, then bi-monthly, then just occasional texts. "Busy with work, Mama. We'll call you soon." Soon never came. When I did manage to see him, it was always at restaurants Kendra chose, always with Kendra present, always conversations carefully steered by her to topics she approved. My son had become a stranger who wore my son's face. I started noticing other things too. Marcus looked tired all the time, dark circles under his eyes, a tension in his shoulders that never eased. He'd lost weight. When I asked if he was okay, he'd force a smile and say, "Everything was great, couldn't be better. Life was perfect." But nothing about him seemed perfect. He seemed trapped. Then came the Sunday dinners at Kendra and Marcus's house. Every 2 weeks, Vivian insisted on family dinners at Marcus and Kendra's. But family only meant the Augustines and Marcus. I wasn't invited until one day Kendra called. "Miss Loretta, I think it's time you joined our Sunday dinners. Marcus misses you." My heart leaped. Finally, inclusion. I'd love that. Thank you, Kendra. Of course, we're family now. This Sunday at 6. I arrived with a pecan pie I'd baked, Marcus's favorite. When I rang the bell, a housekeeper answered. They had a housekeeper now. The house was stunning. Hardwood floors, vaulted ceilings, expensive furniture, artwork I didn't understand but knew cost a fortune. It looked like a showcase home, not a place where people actually lived. Marcus greeted me with a hug, but it was brief, almost perfunctory. "Hey, Mama, glad you could make it." I wouldn't miss it for the world, baby. Vivian was already there, of course, holding court in the living room with a glass of white wine. Lawrence sat in an armchair, half watching golf on the massive television. Kendra flitted around, making sure everything was perfect. "Loretta," Vivian said my name like it left a bad taste in her mouth. "How nice of you to join us." "Thank you for having me." Dinner was catered, not homemade. We sat at a formal dining table that could seat 12, though only 5 of us were there. Kendra served some kind of French chicken dish with a sauce I couldn't pronounce. Everyone praised it lavishly. My pecan pie sat on the counter, ignored. The conversation revolved around people I didn't know, places I'd never been, business deals, and social events in a world I didn't understand. I tried to contribute, but every comment I made was met with polite smiles and quick subject changes. Then Vivian turned her attention to me. "Loretta, Marcus tells me you worked in water utilities for 30-some years. That must have been very steady work." "It was. I enjoyed it." "How quaint. I can't imagine having to work in government bureaucracy for that long. The monotony must have been crushing." "It was honest work. It paid the bills and raised my son." "Yes, well, Marcus has certainly exceeded those humble beginnings, hasn't he? Thanks in no small part to Kendra's influence." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing in my defense. "Marcus succeeded because he's smart and hard-working," I said firmly. "He always has been." "Of course," Vivian said with that condescending smile, "but raw talent only gets you so far. Refinement, connections, understanding of how to navigate the right social circles, those things require proper guidance." "Are you suggesting I didn't raise my son properly?" "I'm suggesting that some of us are better equipped to prepare young people for success than others. It's not an insult, Loretta. It's simply a fact based on experience and social standing." I felt rage building in my chest, but before I could respond, Kendra stood up. "Mama, can you help me in the kitchen?" Vivian followed her daughter, leaving me sitting at that table with Marcus and Lawrence. Marcus stared at his plate. Lawrence had fallen asleep in his chair. "Marcus," I said quietly, "are you going to let her talk to me like that?" "Mama, please, don't make this difficult." "I'm making it difficult? Your mother-in-law just insulted me to my face." "She didn't mean it like that. Mrs. Vivian just has high standards." "High standards? She treats me like I'm dirt she scraped off her shoe." "You're being dramatic." Those words cut deeper than anything Vivian said. My own son telling me I was dramatic for being hurt by blatant disrespect. I excused myself to use the bathroom, needing a moment to collect myself. As I walked down the hallway, I heard voices coming from Marcus's home office. The door was slightly ajar. I recognized Vivian's voice, sharp and cold. "I don't care what you have to do, Kendra. That woman cannot keep coming to these dinners. She's an embarrassment." "Mama, she's Marcus's mother. We have to include her sometimes." "Why? She adds nothing to the conversation. She makes everyone uncomfortable with her cheap clothes. And her complete lack of sophistication. Every time she opens her mouth, I cringe." I should have walked away. I should have gone back to the table, but I couldn't move. "What do you want me to do?" Kendra asked. "Make it clear she's not welcome. Be direct if you have to. That woman needs to understand her place, and her place is not in our family's life." "What about Marcus? He'll be upset." "Marcus will get over it. He's already halfway there. Haven't you noticed how little he mentions her anymore? He's embarrassed of her too. He's just too guilty to admit it." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I walked back to the dining room, picked up my purse, and headed for the door. "Mama, where are you going?" Marcus stood up, confused. "I'm leaving. I'm not feeling well." "But we haven't had dessert." "I'm sure you'll manage without me." I looked at my son, really looked at him, searching for the boy I'd raised. He wasn't there anymore. "Goodbye, Marcus." I left that house and cried all the way home. But by the time I pulled into my driveway, the tears had stopped, and something else had taken their place. Determination. Because I'd heard something else while standing in that hallway. Something that terrified me. After Kendra and Vivian's conversation about getting rid of me, Vivian had said something else, something quieter that I almost missed. "Once we handle the insurance situation, none of this will matter anyway. We'll have everything we need, and Marcus will be so grateful he'll never question us again." Insurance situation. What insurance situation? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Marcus's tired eyes, his weight loss, the tension in his shoulders. I thought about the $40,000 I'd given him that he never paid back. I thought about how completely Kendra and Vivian controlled his life. And I thought about that phrase, insurance situation. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private investigator. His name was Thomas Brennan, a retired police detective who now ran a small investigation firm. I found him through a friend of a friend who'd used him during a messy divorce. I met him at a diner far from my neighborhood where no one would recognize me. "Mrs. Blackwell," Thomas said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "My assistant said you have concerns about your son?" "I do. I think he might be in danger, but I don't have proof. I just have a feeling, and I need to know if I'm crazy or if something really is wrong." I told him everything. The rapid marriage, the isolation, the money I'd given Marcus, the way Kendra and Vivian controlled every aspect of his life. And I told him about the phrase I'd overheard, insurance situation. Thomas listened without interrupting, taking notes on a small pad. When I finished, he sat back and looked at me seriously. "Mrs. Blackwell, that phrase concerns me too. In my experience, when people talk about insurance in secretive tones, it's usually not about legitimate insurance matters. Do you know if your son has a life insurance policy?" "I don't know. We used to talk about everything, but now he tells me nothing. What I'd like to do is run a background check on Kendra and Vivian Augustine. See if anything unusual pops up. Financial problems, legal issues, Anything that might explain why they're so interested in your son. Would you be comfortable with that? Yes, whatever you need to do. It won't be cheap, Mrs. Blackwell. This kind of investigation takes time. I have some savings left. Use whatever you need. Thomas worked fast. Within a week, he called me with preliminary findings. Mrs. Blackwell, you need to come to my office. There are some things you need to see. I drove to his office in downtown Columbia, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Thomas met me with a thick folder and a grave expression. What did you find? Sit down first. I sat. He opened the folder and spread documents across his desk. Let's start with Vivian Augustine. On the surface, she looks legitimate. She and her husband Lawrence own the house in Forest Acres. He's retired from a medical supply business he sold 10 years ago. They're members of the country club, active in charity circles, all very respectable. But it's a house of cards. Lawrence's business was failing when he sold it. He got far less than people think. Most of their wealth is leveraged, mortgages on mortgages, credit card debt into 6 figures. They're barely hanging on. My stomach dropped. They're broke? Not quite broke, but drowning in debt and desperate to maintain appearances, which brings me to Kendra. He pulled out more documents. Kendra Augustine, now Kendra Blackwell, has something very interesting. She inherited a substantial trust from her maternal grandmother 6 years ago. We're talking about $3.2 million. $3 million? I whispered. The trust has specific conditions. Kendra can't touch the principal until she's 40 years old, which is 8 years from now. But there's an exception clause. If she's married and her spouse dies, the trust passes entirely to her with no age restrictions. The room spun. You're saying if Marcus dies, Kendra gets $3 million? Not just Kendra. The trust would go to Kendra, but knowing what I know about her parents' financial situation, I'd bet that money would immediately go to pay off their debts and maintain their lifestyle. Oh my God, you think they're planning to kill my son? I think they have a very strong financial motive, and combined with what you overheard about the insurance situation, yes, I'm extremely concerned about your son's safety. What insurance situation? What does that mean? Thomas pulled out another document. I checked with my contacts at various insurance companies. 3 months ago, Marcus Blackwell purchased a $2 million life insurance policy. The primary beneficiary is Kendra. The secondary beneficiary is Vivian Augustine. I couldn't breathe. $2 million plus $3 million. That's $5 million they'd get if Marcus dies. Exactly. And Mrs. Blackwell, there's something else. I pulled police reports from Forest Acres. In the last 6 months, there have been 3 incidents at Marcus and Kendra's address. An accidental gas leak that could have caused an explosion. A fall down the stairs where Marcus ended up in the emergency room with a concussion. And a car accident where Marcus's brakes failed. 3 accidents? 3 incidents that police classified as accidents. But Mrs. Blackwell, I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. I don't believe in coincidences. 1 accident is bad luck. 2 is suspicious. 3 is a pattern. I felt sick. They're trying to kill him. I believe they're creating scenarios where his death would look accidental. Gas leaks happen. People fall downstairs. Car brakes fail. Each one individually is believable, but together? Thomas shook his head. Your son is in serious danger. What do I do? I can't just call Marcus and tell him his wife and mother-in-law are trying to murder him. He won't believe me. He'll think I'm a crazy, jealous mother trying to ruin his marriage. You're right. He won't believe you, not without proof. Which is why we need to gather more evidence. I want to put surveillance on that house, track their movements, try to catch them planning something. And I want you to keep attending those Sunday dinners if you can stand it. Keep your eyes and ears open. Record conversations if possible. How long will this take? I don't know. Could be weeks, could be months. But Mrs. Blackwell, your son's life is at stake. We have to be patient and thorough. I left Thomas's office feeling like I'd aged 10 years. My son, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone with every ounce of love and strength I had, was married to a woman who saw him as a paycheck. A woman who, along with her mother, was planning to murder him for money. And Marcus had no idea. The next Sunday dinner was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I walked into that house knowing that Vivian and Kendra were planning my son's death, and I had to smile and make small talk and pretend everything was normal. Thomas had given me a small recording device that looked like a pen. I kept it in my purse, ready to pull out if I heard anything important. Dinner started normally. Marcus looked even more tired than usual, and I noticed a fresh bruise on his arm. What happened to your arm, baby? Oh, just clumsy. Slipped in the garage yesterday. Kendra spoke up quickly. He really needs to be more careful. That's the third time this month he's fallen or bumped into something. Third time. 3 accidents. The pattern continued. After dinner, Marcus got a work call and excused himself to his office. Lawrence fell asleep in his chair as usual. Kendra said she needed to check on the housekeeper, and I found myself alone in the living room with Vivian. She looked at me with barely concealed contempt. Loretta, I've been meaning to speak with you. About what? I asked, my hand moving to my purse where the recording pen was. About these weekly dinners. I don't think they're working out. Why not? Because you make everyone uncomfortable. You don't fit in with our family dynamic. Marcus is too polite to say it, but I'm not. We don't want you here. I pulled out the pen, clicking it like I was getting ready to take notes. The tiny red light indicated it was recording. You're telling me I'm not welcome in my own son's home? It's not his home. It's Kendra's home. I bought it for her, and I decide who's welcome and who isn't. Does Marcus know you feel this way? Marcus knows what he needs to know. He's a smart boy. He understands that sacrifices have to be made for success, and sometimes that sacrifice is cutting out people who hold you back. I have never held Marcus back. Haven't you? With your poverty mentality, your simple life, your complete lack of ambition? You raised him to be mediocre, Loretta. Kendra and I are raising him to be exceptional. By isolating him from everyone who truly loves him? Vivian laughed, a cold sound. Love? You think love matters? Money matters. Power matters. Status matters. Love is what poor people tell themselves to feel better about having nothing. I feel sorry for you, I said honestly. You're so empty inside that you can't recognize real love when it's in front of you. Vivian's eyes went hard. You know what I recognize, Loretta? I recognize that you're a problem that needs to be solved. And trust me, I'm very good at solving problems. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Stay away from Marcus. Stop coming to these dinners. Stop calling him. Stop being a burden on his life. Because if you don't do it voluntarily, I'll make it happen anyway. Before I could respond, Kendra walked back in. Vivian's expression shifted instantly to a pleasant smile. Loretta was just leaving, Vivian said. Weren't you, Loretta? I stood up, my hands trembling but my voice steady. Actually, I was hoping to say goodbye to Marcus first. He's busy with work, Kendra said quickly. I'll tell him you said goodbye. I'd prefer to tell him myself. I said he's busy. Kendra's voice turned sharp. You need to leave now. I looked at both of them, these two women who were plotting to murder my son, and I wanted to scream the truth at them. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not without more proof. Fine. Tell Marcus I said goodbye, and that I love him. I walked out of that house with the recording pen in my hand, my proof of Vivian's threats. But threats weren't the same as murder plans. I needed more. Thomas continued his surveillance. Over the next 3 weeks, he documented Vivian visiting Marcus and Kendra's house almost daily, always when Marcus was at work. He photographed her meeting with a man Thomas identified as a former mechanic with a criminal record for insurance fraud. He tracked financial transfers from Kendra's accounts to offshore accounts. But we still didn't have the smoking gun. We didn't have evidence of an actual murder plot that would make police take action. Then Thomas called me at midnight 3 weeks after our first meeting. Mrs. Blackwell, I need you to come to my office right now. I found something. I drove through empty streets to his office, my heart pounding. Thomas was waiting with his computer open. I finally got access to Kendra's email account. Don't ask me how, but I got in, and I found this. He turned the screen toward me. It was an email chain between Kendra and Vivian, sent from personal accounts they thought were secure. The first email from Vivian read, "We need to move the timeline up. Lawrence's creditors are getting aggressive. We need that money now." Kendra's response, "I know, Mama, but we have to be careful. 3 incidents already look suspicious. We need to wait at least another month before trying again." Vivian, "We don't have another month. I'm telling you, the house is about to be foreclosed. We need Marcus gone within 2 weeks, or we lose everything." Kendra, "What about Loretta? She's been asking questions. What if she suspects something?" Vivian, "Let me handle Loretta. If she becomes a real problem, we'll deal with her too. But focus on Marcus. The life insurance plus the trust will solve all our problems. Just make it look like an accident. Use the medication idea we discussed." My blood ran cold. Medication idea? Thomas clicked to another email. "Kendra, I've been crushing sleeping pills into his dinner like you suggested. He's been dizzy and disoriented. Last night he almost fell down the stairs again. Maybe we just wait for him to fall naturally?" Vivian, "No, too unpredictable. Stick to the original plan. The carbon monoxide in the bedroom while he sleeps. It's foolproof. Everyone will think it was a faulty heater. You'll be the grieving widow. We'll have the money within weeks." I couldn't see through my tears. "They're going to kill him. Soon. We have to stop them." This email is enough for the police. We have conspiracy to commit murder in writing. We have evidence of previous attempts. We have financial motive. This is rock solid. Call them, please. Call the police right now. Thomas picked up his phone. "Detective Hayes? It's Thomas Brennan. I have a situation that needs immediate attention. A woman named Kendra Blackwell and her mother Vivian Augustine are actively planning to murder Kendra's husband, Marcus Blackwell. I have written evidence and documentation of previous attempts. He gave them the address. He told them to hurry. He said Marcus's life was in immediate danger. They're sending units now, Thomas told me. But Mrs. Blackwell, there's something you need to know. This is going to destroy your son's life. His wife is going to prison. The scandal will be enormous. He's going to be devastated. Better devastated than dead, I said firmly. Make the calls. Get the police there. Save my son. Detective Raymond Hayes arrived at the house with 6 officers and a warrant based on Thomas's evidence. They arrested Kendra and Vivian on the spot for conspiracy to commit murder and multiple counts of attempted murder. But I wasn't there for any of it. Thomas advised me to stay away, let the police handle it. So I sat in his office watching the minutes tick by, praying they'd reached Marcus in time. My phone finally rang at 2 a.m. It was Marcus. Mama? His voice was broken, shattered. Mama, what's happening? The police are here. They arrested Kendra and Mrs. Vivian. They're saying Kendra tried to kill me. That can't be true. Tell me it's not true. Baby, I'm so sorry. It's true. I have proof. They were planning to murder you for your insurance money and Kendra's trust fund. No, you're lying. You never liked Kendra. You're making this up to break us up. Marcus, listen to me. The police have emails where they discuss poisoning you, staging accidents, using carbon monoxide. Your wife drugged you. She was trying to kill you. You're lying, he screamed it, raw and anguished. You're a jealous, bitter woman who couldn't stand to see me happy. Marcus, stay away from me. I never want to see you again. This is all your fault. He hung up. My heart shattered into pieces. But 3 days later, after Marcus had time to see the evidence, after the police showed him the emails and the documentation and the truth, he called again. This time he was crying. Mama, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You saved my life and I screamed at you. You were right about everything and I didn't listen. I'm so sorry. It's okay, baby. You're safe now. That's all that matters. Can I come home, Mama? I don't have anywhere else to go. You always have a home with me. Always. But before any of that happened, before the arrests and the apologies and the healing, there was that Sunday dinner where Vivian threw hot soup in my face. Because even though I'd made the call to the police, even though I'd set everything in motion, Kendra and Vivian had one last dinner party planned. One final attempt to drive me out of Marcus's life before their plan was set to be executed. They didn't know the police were already building a case. They didn't know I had recordings and evidence. They didn't know that their emails had been discovered. So when Vivian grabbed that bowl of she-crab soup and hurled it at my face, when she said, "That's exactly what trash like you deserves," when Marcus sat there and said, "She's right, Mama," they thought they were winning. They thought they'd broken me. They didn't know I'd already made the call that would end them. As I walked out of that house with soup dripping down my face, with my skin burning, with my heart breaking, I also felt a grim satisfaction. Because in 3 hours, Detective Hayes would arrive with arrest warrants. In 3 hours, Kendra and Vivienne would be in handcuffs. In 3 hours, the truth would explode like a bomb, and I would be the one who lit the fuse. The trial took 8 months. The prosecution had overwhelming evidence: the emails, the financial records, the documentation of previous accidents, testimony from the mechanic Vivian had hired to tamper with Marcus's car brakes, medical records showing Marcus had been regularly drugged with sleeping medication he wasn't prescribed. Vivian tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that the emails were taken out of context. Her lawyer argued that no actual murder had occurred, so how could they be convicted? But conspiracy to commit murder doesn't require the murder to succeed. Intent is enough. And the intent was clear in every email, every financial transfer, every staged accident. Kendra broke on the stand. She admitted everything, sobbing, saying her mother had manipulated her, that she'd never wanted to hurt Marcus, that the money pressures from her family had driven her to terrible decisions. The jury didn't buy it. They convicted both women on all counts. Vivian got 18 years, Kendra got 15. Lawrence died 6 months after his wife's conviction, alone in a rented room, drowning his guilt in bourbon. And Marcus moved back into my small brick house in Elmwood Park, sleeping in his childhood bedroom, trying to piece his life back together. The first few months were hard. Marcus was devastated, ashamed, broken. He'd lost everything: his wife, his marriage, his trust in his own judgment. He'd nearly lost his life. But slowly, day by day, he started healing. We had breakfast together every morning. I made him the foods he'd loved as a child. We talked for hours about everything. Because you're human, baby. Because they were good at manipulation. Because you wanted to believe you'd married someone who loved you. I was so mean to you. I chose them over you so many times. You were being manipulated. That's what manipulators do. They isolate you from people who truly love you, so you're easier to control. I should have listened to you from the start. Maybe. But then you wouldn't have learned what you needed to learn. Sometimes we have to go through fire to understand what's real and what's not. A year after the trial, Marcus got a job at a different accounting firm, one where no one knew his story. He moved into a small apartment, modest but comfortable, paid for with money he earned himself. He started therapy to work through the trauma of discovering his wife had tried to kill him. And every Sunday, without fail, he came home for dinner, just like old times. We sat on my front porch one evening, 2 years after everything fell apart. Marcus had gained back the weight he'd lost. The darkness had lifted from his eyes. He looked like my son again. Mama, I never thanked you properly for saving my life. You don't need to thank me. I'm your mother. It's what mothers do. Not all mothers would have kept fighting when their son pushed them away. Not all mothers would have hired an investigator and gathered evidence. You could have just written me off, figured I'd made my choice. That was never an option, baby. You're my son. I brought you into this world. I wasn't going to stand by and let someone take you out of it. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. You don't have to make anything up to me. Just be happy, be safe, be yourself. That's all I've ever wanted. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over our neighborhood. The same neighborhood where I'd raised him, where he'd played as a child, where he was learning to live again. Mama, can I ask you something? Anything, baby. When you walked out of that dinner with soup on your face, when you made that call to the police, were you scared? Terrified. I was scared the police wouldn't believe me. I was scared they wouldn't get there in time. I was scared you'd hate me forever for destroying your marriage. But you did it anyway. Because being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what's right, even when you're terrified. Marcus took my hand. "You're my hero, Mama. You always have been." Those words, the words he used to say when he was a little boy, filled my heart. Because my son had come home, not just to my house, but to himself, to the person he'd been before Kendra and Vivienne tried to remake him into someone else. Today, Marcus is engaged to a woman named Angela. She's a teacher, kind and genuine, with a good heart. She likes my cooking and doesn't mind my small house. She calls me Miss Loretta with respect, not condescension. And when she looks at Marcus, I see real love, not dollar signs. The wedding is in 6 months. Angela asked if I'd help her choose her dress, if I'd want to be involved in planning. I cried when she asked, happy tears this time. Kendra and Vivienne are still in prison. Marcus visited Kendra once, a year after her conviction, for closure. She apologized, for what it's worth. He hasn't been back since. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how everything happened, if I wish I'd handled things differently. I don't. Because yes, it was painful. Yes, it nearly destroyed my son. Yes, it was the hardest thing I've ever been through. But Marcus is alive. He's healthy. He's happy. He's found real love with someone who values him for who he is, not what he's worth. And that's all that matters. My name is Loretta Jean Blackwell. I'm 62 years old, and this is the story of how I discovered my daughter-in-law was trying to murder my son, how I stopped her, and how I got my son back. Some people think revenge is sweet. I think justice is sweeter. I'll leave you with this. If something feels wrong in your life, if someone you love is changing in ways that concern you, if you see warning signs others dismiss, trust your instincts. Investigate. Ask questions. Don't let anyone convince you that love means silent acceptance. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be silent. Even when silence would be easier. Even when speaking up costs you everything. Your loved one's life might depend on it. Mine did. And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who might be facing something similar. Trust yourself, protect the people you love, and never, never let anyone convince you that asking questions makes you the villain. Sometimes, the people who ask the hard questions are the only heroes in the room. God bless you all. And remember, a mother's love is fierce. And when that love is threatened, there's nothing in this world more dangerous than a mother protecting her child.